Welcome back to the Football Forecast. We have two fresh guests, Rob and Kate, are with us, and we have some blockbuster fixtures this weekend, kicking off with Arsenal against Tottenham. We might be watching one of the title contenders. Spurs, I assume, are the side you're going to back in the title contenders conversation.
Oh, that's good of you. We are watching title contenders, or certainly the best title contenders in North London. The exciting one for the neutral in this game is that North London derby, it always seems to have a lot of goals, right? And the most recent one that I am still holding in my heart was the Tottenham 3-0 victory against Arsenal. Rob Holding getting sent off. The other thing that the neutral likes, lots of yellow cards. There's always going to be plenty of fouling in this North London derby. So I think it's going to be a gutsy performance from both sides and hopefully a lot of goals.
Well, you look at Arsenal this season, you have to say 6 of their 7 games at the start of this season they've won. They probably, I say this very, very, very carefully, should have beaten United. Could have been 7 out of 7. They've started very well.
Really well, and probably better than a lot of people thought. You consider in the summer, I think if you'd offered Arsenal fans the chance to finish in the top 4, finish 4th, I think they'd probably bitten your hand off. But now they've started so well that you've got an Arsenal fan started looking, thinking, is it possible that you can challenge City? Could you get ahead of Liverpool in the table? I think whoever wins at the weekend, I think they would be well within their rights to call themselves title contenders. I know it might seem a bit early, obviously, a couple of weeks into the season, we've got a break for a World Cup, but I think that would be fair enough if there was one team to win, whether it was Arsenal or Spurs at the weekend, they could legitimately call themselves title contenders.
It is early, and the other thing is, this thing about obviously Tottenham's still unbeaten and Arsenal have done so well, 6 out of 7. But we are. It doesn't feel like it. I think partly because we had the break for the sad events, or some games were missed for the sad events in the UK recently, and as you point out, we're going to the World Cup, so not so many games, but. It feels as though things are settling into some kind of table format, but Fulham is still top 6, so it's still very early doors.
I just think it's interesting. You've got 2 teams that probably wouldn't consider themselves title contenders in the summer, who have started quite well, and are now paired with each other. Very early on, obviously in the season, but it's a good indication, isn't it? If you were to win that game, about whether you could handle the pressure going forward, whether you could mount some kind of title challenge. Obviously, still very early. I'm going to say that again, very early. But it is a good indication. If Arsenal or Spurs were to win, I think they'd be fair enough to say they're right in the mix.
Maybe you guys can say about Arsenal, because it's hard for me to have as a Spurs fan, it's hard for me to be totally.
Can't even have that conversation.
No, I'm happy to talk about them, but it's hard probably for me to be dispassionate. But I would have said when I did my predictions for the Ramble, the podcast that I do, and I. Okay, slightly jokingly, I put down Tottenham as winning the title. Partly just because I felt like in recent seasons, all seasons of my life pretty much, that's never been a legitimate prediction, right? But so to your point about whether or not Tottenham are title contenders, realistically, if my life depended on it, of course I would have predicted Manchester City in the summer. But in terms of the situation that Tottenham are in right now, in terms of having a title-winning manager who knows how to get the job done, and if you see what he's done over the course of the first 7 games of the season, Conte, the way that he's, first of all, had some great transfers, but second of all, the way he's shifting around up front. We can rotate. We've got enough. Sorry, Tottenham can rotate. Is that allowed?
Can't help yourself.
Tottenham can rotate. There's enough attacking and muscular defensive players that they can. You feel comfortable that even if people are missing, probably with except Harry Kane, you feel like you've still got a team that can deliver a decent performance, and even when they're playing not that well.
This is the thing, right? I think what's been really interesting is you have Arsenal and Arteta, who look like they're playing probably the best they can play this season. They're absolutely in first gear, and you have Spurs on the other side, who even against Leicester finished 6-2. But the first half, Leicester actually played really well. The second half, Son comes on and everything changes, and whatever happens. But you're kind of left that game feeling like Spurs can still play a lot better than where they are, and they're kind of in the title race very quietly. You turn up against Arsenal, do the same again, you're kind of going, at some point, Spurs go into first gear and go 5, 6, 7, 8 games unbeaten under Conte, and still showing that they've got the knack to win the games that they don't deserve to win. I mean, Sir Alex Ferguson used to do it all the time. United didn't need to play well to win games. It gives me that sort of feeling a little bit. Whereas I look at Arteta and Arsenal and I go, you're going to have a drop-off at some point because you are giving everything. And you go up against United, you're naive and lose a game that you probably should have got more out of, and then you go in. Spurs probably don't do that under Conte, do they?
I think in terms of what a manager brings to a team, just what the manager brings to that team, nobody does more for their team in the top 6 than Conte does for Spurs. Just that, you've mentioned there, he's already won the title, he's been there and seen it and done it. He's such a good organiser. He knows how to win these big games. And obviously the rest of the top 6 managers are all good managers. They wouldn't be there in those jobs if they weren't good managers. But in terms of actually what Conte gives to Tottenham, if you could quantify that, which obviously you can't in stats or anything, but if you could, I think he would be at the top of the list, because he's that important. Spurs are gonna, if the Spurs were to win the title, they would win the title because of Conte.
You never know, because when he went to Chelsea, people said he wouldn't win the title at Chelsea, and he was playing Victor Moses.
They were miles off it. They were miles off it when he took over, and all of a sudden they were there or thereabouts, and then it got to May and they were still there, and then they won it. It's just one. It does happen. Obviously, I'm going to say again, it's very, very early, but it does happen. It does happen, especially when you've got managers like Antonio Conte, who's that skillful a manager. If he gets a group of players that buy into what he's trying to do, the way he wants to organise, the way he wants to attack, the way he wants to defend, anything can happen.
And look at the quality that Tottenham have got up front as well. And look at, for example, Harry Kane taking that penalty against Germany. Did you not think that when he hit that penalty, it was full of all of the venom of having had his penalty saved by Dean Henderson in the league? The most recent penalty had been saved.
That's not how I saw it. He's taking a pen ringing, but
That is what it looked like to me. So yeah, obviously Harry Kane, we don't even really need to talk about him. Conte, maybe this is a management thing as well. Conte taking Son finally, keeping the faith with him, not having him in the starting lineup, and then taking him out of the starting lineup when he scores a hat trick. I mean, perhaps it's genius.
Well, it's sometimes you get these runs where just decisions by managers pay off, and you just go through these little spells where you take a player out of the team and then you put him on for the last 30 minutes and he scores a hat trick, and you're a genius. Seasons, they have these little funny runs where things just go your way. No, I don't want to talk up Spurs too much.
No, it's fine. We can absolutely do Arsenal.
But no, I mean, I think it's fair enough that you're looking at your team and the manager like that and thinking, well, you never know.
I do wonder if there was an Arsenal fan in this room, what they'd be saying right now. Because they're probably sat there thinking, hold on a minute, we've won 6 of 7. We should have beaten United. It could have been 7 of 7.
Do you want to look at who you played? So Palace, Leicester, Bournemouth, Fulham, Villa, lost to Manchester United, Brentford. Again, it's early in the season, and I don't want to disrespect any of these, many of whom are massive teams, but you wouldn't consider, apart from the one that Arsenal lost to, Manchester United, you wouldn't consider any of those guys to be top-tier teams right now.
The thing is, though, Spurs dropped points against West Ham and Chelsea, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yes.
And neither of them, both of them fixtures are Spurs' toughest fixtures, which probably kind of shows where Spurs are at in a way as well, which is what makes this game more interesting. Because for the first time, 2 equal sides are going head-to-head, both in form to some extent, both have players fit. There isn't injuries, which always happens before this fixture. Arsenal are missing a couple of defenders, or someone's missing for Spurs, and then you're kind of like, oh, what's going to happen? This is the first time I think you see two of the best sides in the league, aside from City, going head-to-head, trying to essentially put a case in for a title. If this ends 3-0 to Arsenal, there is no way Arsenal fans don't walk away from that going, we're in this title race. Yeah. And it's the same for Spurs.
Yeah.
So you kind of go, hold on a minute, Arsenal are as much in this title race as Spurs are. I'm sat here backing Spurs because I appreciate Conte, but at the same time going, Arsenal definitely have a case to put in there.
I think the pressure is massively on Arsenal. They've got far more to lose at the weekend than Tottenham do. I think Tottenham can go in with the pressure off. If they were to drop points, if they were to lose, I think people would go, all right, that's a tough play. Tough game, you've lost, move on. It would be the first defeat of the season, not been beaten yet. If Arsenal were to lose, given what happened at Old Trafford against United when they played really well and were on the end, ultimately, of a 3-1 battering, if that were to happen again, people would look at them and go, they're not there yet. Yeah. They're going to, even if they were there sort of further down the line, that they would bottle it in these big games. You need to be able to show that you can handle the pressure of these big games, and I think the pressure ultimately this weekend is on Arsenal. If they win, they'll be expected to win. If they lose, it'll be crisis.
That is absolute music to your ears.
I am actually having a really nice time. Thanks,
I
guys.
hear that.
Can I make a quite niche point that might be quite interesting? Because you know how, like North London, as I've already referenced it, North London derby is always quite feisty, right? Gabriel Jesus is on 4 yellows, so if he gets the 5th, he misses the next game.
Good knowledge.
Do you like that? So it's quite interesting because there's always it must have been 4 yellows I can't remember if that's counting the Rob Holding red, but anyway, given out in the last North London derby. So I don't know if that will affect. Just last time out, it was about nous, and it was about actually Tottenham being the more, I don't know, I was going to say chilled, but that's not what I mean. The more kind of almost the more mature side, not just because there's lots of young players like Saka, Smith Rowe, etc. in the Arsenal side, but there's a lot of stuff about nous in a North London derby. And yeah, just be interested to see.
You sound very confident.
Oh no, I'm not.
Score predictions. I'm throwing you under the bus. Let's hear your score predictions.
I'm not confident. I just, I try and look at the positives. Score predictions for the North London derby at 12:30 on Saturday.
Great promo.
Does that change things? Is that the Emirates? Let's say
A little bit more chaos at 12:30.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a well-known fact.
I think so, anyway. I think Arsenal go 1-0 up and then Tottenham win 2-1.
I think 2 each. Lots of goals, lots of chances, but at the end, both teams won't want to lose and settle for 2 each.
I'm going to go the exact same.
Yeah.
As soon as he said it, I was like, yeah, that's my scoreline now. I'm going 2-2. Harry Kane bags a double. He's actually scored 13 in his last 17 games against Arsenal.
Yes.
So Kane on the double, Jesus on the double. If you're an FPL fan, get them both in. It is going to be an absolute cracker.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.